Well, 100 caps, very good indeed. 75 is not too shabby either, and that's how many times David Seaman played for his country. And delighted to say he joins us now to talk England, to talk the North London derby as well on Sunday. Good afternoon to you, David. Before we talk about that, though, you've also been speaking today about drink awareness. Why is that a campaign that's important to you?
Yeah, it was just something that I wanted to get involved in, because I've never been asked before, like what's, the amount of alcohol or what your intake of alcohol is. And I just thought that it was a great idea. And it's not, obviously not just for me or people of my age, it's young people as well. And, having experienced the Euros in England where it got really rowdy and got out of hand, I just like trying to advise people to be aware of their alcohol consumption, and with this drink aware app, they can go on that, do a check. It literally takes like 2 or 3 minutes. I've seen VAR decisions take a lot longer than that, so it doesn't take long at all, and it can really help you in the future. And it can help you judge what you're drinking. Obviously the quantities, but also help with the health benefits as well. Because obviously the drink comes with a lot of risk as well. Comes with a lot of chances of getting cancer, certain types of cancer. But yeah, it's just making people aware of what their alcohol intake is.
Within the game, do you think it's changed significantly? You talked about maybe within supporters there over the course of the Euros, but back in your day, I mean, there were a lot of stories that came out from Arsenal in particular about the drinking culture that existed.
Yeah, there was, and I'm not saying that everybody was going over the top. Obviously, there was a certain few people that did. And that's what it's like in day-to-day life. But back in the day, there was a lot more drinking going on, then obviously people like Arsene Wenger came in and, he didn't like tell us that we can't have a drink straight away. He just made it obvious to the reasons why you can't. And more importantly, the fact that training was so hard that if you'd had a drink the night before, you stood out like a sore thumb because you couldn't perform. You couldn't perform like you should do, and Arsenal could spot that. So back in the day, it was easier to not get away with it, but it was more of a social event. But nowadays, it just needs to be like a nicer event if you are going to have a couple. But yeah, just keep it in check.
Let's talk England then, shall we? Lee Carsey started off his interim reign with that victory against the Republic of Ireland at the weekend. Were you impressed, and did you see any significant changes?
I didn't see a lot of changes, if I'm honest. I saw the players playing with a little bit more confidence, and they're going to do that, because obviously there's a new manager in town, and they're wanting to impress. I was really pleased for Jack Grealish. He's back in the squad and performed like he did in a little bit of a new role. But it was great to see him back and then score his goal. Obviously, he celebrated it a lot different to what Declan did, but they've both got their reasons for doing that. But yeah, I saw a positive performance on what could have been a tricky game, because Republic of Ireland, as they showed in the second half, they were quite tough, and as much as there's been a lot of criticism about the second half, I didn't quite see that much. I didn't see that we were that bad. We went 2-0 up, we were comfortable. What I did see was Kelleher making a lot of saves, so obviously we were on top.
We spoke about Gareth Southgate just before the Euros final, like back in the summer, and everything that he'd achieved. And is it sometimes, though, for a player that, as good as a manager can be, you just eventually need to hear a different voice?
Yeah, sometimes it can be like that, and it gives people that are maybe not in favour with the previous manager, it gives them a new start, and then you get a different reaction, so they have a different reaction, and then that means that the guys that are regulars, they've got to react differently just to try and impress the new manager. And I think that's what we saw against Ireland, but we still saw a confident England team that was scoring goals, not giving away many chances, and still creating chances. The fact that we created quite a lot of good chances in the second half, it gives me confidence. Whether that's a new way of playing or anything, I didn't notice a massive difference, and what annoys me the most is that like a lot of people expect to kick on from the standard that Gareth left and the standard that he set, and that is not going to be easy. We take for granted what Gareth did, and that, trust me, that was a great achievement.
Yeah, I was going to say actually that people, every time a manager changes, there is often this clamour to do things really differently and rip up a squad sheet and bring in 15 new players. But when you think back to how close Gareth Southgate was to winning something with England, it really isn't major surgery. It's maybe the bounce of the ball. It's the finest of margins to get England over the line finally.
Yeah, especially at that level as well. A little bit of luck. People say, yeah, but we had luck because we had the easy draw or whatever. That wasn't our fault. We qualified. We topped our group. We got ourselves into that position. I bet France wish that they got us into our position. So it is all about a little bit of luck, but it's all about consistency, and that's what I'm seeing with this England team. You're looking back, 2 Euro finals, a World Cup semi-final. These are fantastic achievements, but now we want that cherry on top, And I've always said it. I want to be around when England wins something because, it's going to be one hell of a party, and then the song will be right. Footballers come home.
Well, I'm sure that'll get mentioned if it ever does happen, David. Let's talk about Harry Kane. And I said it, and rightly so. To win one cap for your country is amazing. To win 75 is incredible. To get to three figures, very few will do it. I'm more wanting to touch on the goal scoring. He's got 66 already. He says he's still got plenty more in the tank. He's going to set a level and a bar in terms of goals that is probably never going to be surpassed, isn't he?
He's already set that. There's no doubt. When you watch Harry Kane, he's a proper number 9. And that's what I mean by a number 9. I'm not a massive fan of when he drops into midfield or when he drops a little bit deeper, because I'd rather him be in the box, because his range of finishing is fantastic. Trust me, if anybody as a striker wants to learn anything about being a striker, watch Harry Kane's finish, because he's got so many different finishes. He's got the place, the side foot with power. He's got the volleys. He's got the little dinks. He scores with his head. And his runs are brilliant to watch, because he'll make one run and he knows straight away that that's not going to work. So then he'll check and do another run. If you want to learn a lot about striking, there's not much better to watch than Harry.
And I'm sure that you're particularly pleased that he won't be throwing on a Tottenham Hotspur shirt this weekend with the North London derby ahead. Your old pal Paul Merson, who we spoke to last week, said not as confident as he was last season. How do you see it?
Yeah, I know what Mercer's feeling. Because no matter what happens, in the league or where you are, where you finish, whenever we were playing, we always used to look, when the Tottenham game was, that was the first fixture we looked for. And we always knew it could be tricky. And especially with this Tottenham side now, they're not as consistent as they'd like to be just yet. But when you look at the team on paper and you see some of their performances, they can beat anybody on their day. So it's down to Arsenal to keep them under control, not let them play that, try and really, force our game onto Tottenham. But it's going to be difficult. Obviously, Declan's not playing, so then that leaves a chance for someone like Jorginho, who's not, he's not such a bad replacement to come in, is he? But they were always tricky games against Tottenham.
Just to come back on that consistency point that you made about Spurs, does that make a team almost all more dangerous in that they can be terrible at times, as they were in the first half of the North London derby, I think the second one of last season, but they can be absolutely devastating as well on their day?
No, exactly. And that's where like our worries come in, because we know that if they are on it from minute, the first minute, then they can be a problem. But it's about consistency and it's about doing it regularly. And then that's what Arsenal have been doing. Arsenal have got off to a really steady start. I'd say a bit better than steady start. But these North London derbies, and I know what people, form goes out the window because different things happen in North London derbies. I've just been working with Robbie Keane and we were chatting about all the different London derbies that we've played in and how good they were, and all of a sudden, a really strange result, comes into play. And hopefully that's not a strange result as in a Tottenham win.
You mentioned being without Declan Rice there. I mean, sort of raking up old ground, talking about the incident itself, but it seems just such a soft way to be missing one of your best players, doesn't it? It is a yellow card by the letter of the law, but such a frustrating way to miss a game like that.
Yeah, I was looking for the referee to use common sense, in this. Both players knew what they were doing. Declan knew he was just nudging the ball out of the guy's way. The guy knew that, because there wasn't a pass on the different angle. There isn't a pass on for him to be hitting the ball that hard. And so, yeah, both players knew what they were doing. But just a little bit of common sense. Nothing would have been said if it had just had a word with both of them and got on with it. But the letter of the law says that he kicked the ball like 3 or 4 foot too far, which in itself sounds ridiculous. But through that, Declan's going to miss a North London derby. But as I say, we've got people like Jorginho coming back in, that can come back. Yeah, shame for Mourinho because obviously he's got injured in his first training session and he would miss that, because otherwise I would imagine that he might be the one that got the nod. But we've still got great competition in those midfield places.
You said it had been maybe more than steady start, 7 points from 9. There probably won't be a season in the near future where it feels like a disaster drawing with a team as good as Brighton. Having said that, Manchester City 9 points from 9. They look in about third gear at the moment, don't they? And it feels like a game that... Is it too much to say that Arsenal can't afford to lose on Sunday?
I would imagine that Mikel's attitude is that we can't afford to lose any game because the pressure that Man City are putting on people is phenomenal. Especially when you look at last season and they were without De Bruyne for probably half the season. They were without Haaland for about a third of the season, yet they still won it. They've had a couple of good signings coming back to the club. So it's going to be tough. But as an Arsenal lover, I look back at it and we took 4 points off Man City last season. So it was our games against the other teams that we needed to be better at. We had a couple of bad results against Villa. There was a couple of others in there, but we need to be a little bit more ruthless, and then maybe we can start putting some pressure on Man City, and let's see how they deal with that.
Just on your experiences, you always said as a player that you first up started looking for when the North London derby was. Take me through the week leading up to it. Did you hide yourself in a bunker and try and avoid everyone and talking about the game non-stop before you played Spurs?
A little bit, but you know what's coming. You know that it means so much for the fans because they have to go to work with each other, and it's all about bragging rights, and then being able to go into work the next day and like being the top team in North London, and it means a lot. My memories are of Gaza trying to trip me up in the middle of the park when we were swapping ends and trying to actually pant me in the tunnel and all sorts like that, the typical tricks that Gaza got up to, but also some great memories of beating Tottenham, getting beaten by Tottenham, having the whole of White Hart Lane singing a certain song about a guy that scored a long range winner in a European Cup final, there's good memories and bad memories of these North London derbies.
Paul Gascoigne causing trouble. I can't believe that for a moment. And let's just move away from Arsenal just for a moment then and talk about a goalkeeper who's had a few interesting things to say today. Quevin Kelleher, who I think has intimated, more than intimated, it might be time to move on from Liverpool. Can you understand that as such a good keeper that he can't sit around and wait forever?
A little bit, yeah. I can understand that because, especially at his age, I think he's only about 26, if that. He wants to see how good he is. And when you look at him, and every time he comes in for Liverpool, he always plays really well. He's very consistent, and as we saw against England, he made some really good saves as well. So then the question is are you happy being a number 2? And I'm sure that a lot of Liverpool fans won't like me for this, but sometimes you get a goalkeeper that's too good to be a number 2. The mastery of it is trying to keep too happy. Obviously, like a bit like with Arsenal. Aaron Ramsdale's left now and gone to Southampton, and for me, he was way too good to be a number 2. And he obviously got other things on his mind about trying to get back in the England squad as well. So he needed to be playing. And maybe Kelleher has seen that and thought, well, I'd like to be playing every week, but he ain't going to get in front of Alisson. So it's down for the new Liverpool manager to try and persuade him to stay. But realistically, at that age, you want to be playing, and you can't beat playing. There's nothing when you're training and training and training. There's no consequence. If you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter. In a match, it does. And you only get better by playing in matches.